Hi everyone, this is part 2 of the King's Indian Defense series with GM Leonid Shamkovich against IM Rashid Nezmetdinov, which was played in the USSR Championships in Baku in 1961. It's a very instructive game, especially for black in the King's Indian. Play began d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4 and d6. The point of d6 here is to hinder black from playing e5. For example, if he plays that now, e5, d takes c5, d takes e5, queen takes d1 check, knight takes d1 and knight e4. And black has already an advantage over the opening, so obviously white isn't going to go for that. So d6 is the right move here. Then knight f3 is normal, and after castling, bishop e2, e5, white should castle here. If you're playing someone who doesn't know the opening, it's possible here that they'll play d takes e5. And after d takes e5, knight takes e5, the knight can take e4, discovering an attack on this knight. And here with either continuation, for example this one, knight takes e4, bishop takes e5, queen takes d8, rook takes d8. Again, black's better here, he has at least a slight advantage. Or at this stage, after knight takes e4, white may think that this knight's going to fall anyway, so he can get a pawn for it, but that's a very bad move. After bishop takes c3 check, b takes c3, queen takes d1 check, bishop takes d1 and rook takes f7. Black has a piece for a pawn and should easily win. So after e5, castling is the main line for white, and then knight c6, d5 is the main line. And by contrast with the game before, here white chooses to close the center. In this particular position is by far the most popular choice. So knight e7 is the right move here. And then usual play continues, knight d2, knight e8 and b4. So the respective sides' plans are clear. White has more space on the queen side and intends to exploit this by attacking black's pawn chain by preparing the advance c5. This will enable him to open the c-file and penetrates black's position. Black, meanwhile, will attack on the king side with f5, the classic King's Indian attack. So after f3, f4, c5, g5, knight c3, rook f7. And this is a typical move in such positions. The rook defends c7, which is a key square for black, and makes way for the bishop to come to f8, from where it will defend the potentially weak d6 square. It will probably be a backward pawn, while allowing the rook to go to g7, supporting the kingside pawn storm. So bishop here, rook here, and throw all the pawns up. Bishop d2 is played here, which is wrong really. Well, it's not wrong, but there's better moves. Like a4 would be better, and then bishop a3, from where it can start pressurizing this pawn. But anyway, bishop d2 was played, and then came knight g6, bishop e1, bishop f8, and bishop f2. And here white no doubt hoped that from f2 the bishop would both help to defend the king side and still play a role in attacking black's queenside pawns. In principle there is much to be said for this, but in such a sharp position, 3 moves is rather a high price to play. So it went on, h5, rook c1, knight f6, c takes d6, c takes d6, knight b5, g4, which leaves the a pawn to be gobbled up. But g4 is better move than, say for example, a6 would be a bad mistake, because either bishop b6 or knight b6 are strong continuations for black, or for white, sorry, especially knight b6. Because one important point to note about such positions is that black must be careful not to allow the exchange of his light square bishop, since this piece is an extremely important component in black's kingside attack. And once he has removed the light squared bishop, white is much better placed to resist black's kingside pawn storm. Consequently, one of white's standard plans in these structures is to induce the advance a6 from black, and then get his knight into b6 to exchange the bishop. Another method of achieving the same objective is to play the knight on b5 to c7 and then e6, from where black is pretty much forced to trade off the light square bishop, because the knight will just cause too many problems there. So a6 would have been the wrong move here. And this is another reason that the position of the black rook on f7 is so important, because it's stopping the knight having those moves, because it will simply be taken. Okay, so anyway, g4 was played and not a6, and after that white took the pawn, and then came bishop d7. Of course, black's preserving his light square bishop. a4, g3, and bishop b6. Note that white can't take here twice, because after f takes g3, bishop takes g3, the knight's hanging. So after g3, bishop b6, queen e7, and king to h1, which makes room for the bishop to come back and defend at g1 if the need be. But it's probably inferior playing king h1 to knight b5 would have been a better move. But anyway, after king h1 there was rook h7, which is strong now. Black's starting to generate good threats, and it's hard for white to get his pieces back to defend, because the centre is closed. A few of his pieces are down here, whereas all black is concentrated over here. It's classic in King's Indian stuff. So then came knight b5, knight g4, and h3. The knight can't be taken here, because after f takes g4, h takes g4, bishop g1, rook takes h2 check, bishop takes h2, queen h4. That's the main next move. And that's exactly the kind of thing you have to try and find when you're playing with the black pieces in the King's Indian defense. Sacrifices like that are commonplace. So after h3, queen h4, queen d2, which is the best move really to stop the fork. Like for example, king g1, then knight e3 is very strong. If bishop takes e3, then bishop takes h3, g takes h3, queen takes h3, rook f2 is the only move, and after g takes f2 check, black stands much better. So after queen d2 came knight e3, which is stronger than the other tempting move, knight to f2 check, because then white can simply play on with after bishop takes h3, g takes h3, queen takes h3, rook takes f2, g takes f2 check, and white's fine here. It's pretty equal in fact. So that's not the way to go. After knight e3, bishop d3, and also it's important to note here that white can't take the knight with either his knight or his bishop, because after bishop takes h3 again it's crushing. It's mate in 3 with this continuation, and if he takes with the bishop after knight e3, if he takes with the bishop, then it's mate in 7 with this continuation. Completely forced. So the knight is safe there, and it's strong there, because you know, it's an outpost deep in the white position, and it's going to create serious problems, especially in combination with these other pieces all ganging up on the king. So after knight e3 and bishop d3 came the powerful and thematic sacrifice, bishop takes h3, and here black's winning. After g takes h3, g2 check, king g1, g takes f1 queen, bishop takes f1, queen to g3 check, bishop g2, knight to h4, queen f2, because the threat was knight taking f3 with, you know, just absolutely winning attack. So that has to be defended against. So queen f2, and then knight on e takes g2. Knight on e takes g2, and after queen takes g3, f takes g3, white resigned, because he's a clear rook down, and black has passed pawn here, and there's just no hope for white. So it was a great game from black, classic King's Indian stuff, and it's a great opening. You can get very creative with that kingside attack and throw in all kinds of sacrifices and the like, and you just have to be careful that white doesn't get queenside play. You have to neutralize that. Once you make sure of that, you're fine, and it's a great game to play, great opening to play. You know, you get some really good attacking chances. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave any comments. Thanks very much.